Hey guys, Snortle here. If you're like me, you may have left Apex Legends for a little while to go check out Call of Duty Warzone, see what all the fuss is about. If you have made the switch, you might be thinking, what are the best Warzone game settings so that you can match your performance with Apex Legends, get the best out of your graphics card, make sure you've got the best frames per second with enough detail but not too much and not too little, which can really affect your gameplay negatively. Like me, you may have found out some of the settings are quite different. So today I wanted to run through the settings, not only for your mouse sensitivity, but also the actual graphics settings so that you can get the best results if you're playing on PC. Make sure you're giving yourself the best opportunity and also sort of imitate a little bit of what the pros are using to give themselves the best opportunity to win more games while playing Call of Duty Warzone. So let's dive in. We're going to check these settings out right now. First of all, under mouse settings. Now I use a DPI on my Logitech mouse of 400. A lot of good Apex players and pros use a similar DPI to that in Apex Legends. And then the in-game setting in Apex Legends sits for most pros somewhere between 2.5 and 3.2. For me personally, I switch sometimes between 2.8 and 3.0. For most of my games, though, lately it's been at 3.0 in-game settings in Apex Legends. For Call of Duty Warzone, it's a little bit different. Their in-game mouse sensitivity works a little differently. And so to calculate what I use 400 DPI on my mouse, and I've tried setting this from as low as 7 up to as high as 9, but I've found a good happy medium at 8.0. That gives me the similar mouse sensitivity to what I use in Apex Legends. Now for someone like Shroud, he's using a 450 DPI on his mouse, and he has his mouse sensitivity set to 7.5. So probably it ends up around a similar sensitivity as what I use, but try it for yourself. I would suggest start either at Shroud setting of 450 DPI at 7.5, or the setting that I'm using is 400 DPI on the mouse and an 8.0 in-game, and see how that feels for you, and then just adjust this one, the in-game setting, up or down depending on your playstyle. Okay, so let's dive in and have a look at the graphics settings. Now you should always play with your display mode in full screen. That's going to give you the best frames per second while you're playing. It's going to reduce any RAM and memory load. It's probably the best way to make sure you're getting the best results. Plus, in full screen mode, you get to optimize a couple of different things down here, which I'm going to go through now. Display monitor, this is what I'm playing on. And the display adapter, I'm using the NVIDIA 1080 Ti. My screen refresh rate, I set at 144. Now render resolution, I would recommend you leave this at 100%. I tried having this lower, and it basically made all of the graphics terrible. What you can see here is that the overall VRAM usage changes depending on how you adjust this setting. But if you leave it at 100, that'll go with the render resolution that I've got set, and that's generally the best result here, matching the display resolution. So now as far as aspect ratio goes, leave this as automatic. There's no reason to really change this. With the sync every frame, I have this set to disabled. Basically turning this on can cause input lag, so I want that as disabled so that I don't have any problem with my monitor's refresh rate. The custom frame rate limit, keep that as unlimited, and then that way you'll go as high as your monitor can actually run. NVIDIA highlights I have enabled. Display gamma, I just leave this as 2.2. That's what it was showing to start with, and it doesn't make a significant difference if you just leave it on your current setting. Okay, for texture resolution, I recommend you keep this at low. For your texture filter, anisotropic, I keep this at normal. Particle quality, you can play around with this depending on your graphics card and your system, but I have this set to high. I find it gives me a better gameplay experience. Bullet impacts and sprays, again, you can disable this if you've got a older system perhaps, or a cheaper video card, but I like to have this enabled. and the tessellation we leave at all. Now for your shadow and lighting settings, these are my settings, but you can play with this how you like. The shadow map resolution I have as normal. Then I disable the next two, cache spots shadows and cache sun shadows. If you want a crisper gameplay with visuals, you might enable these. I leave them disabled. I don't particularly like them. The particle lighting I set to low. I recommend this for everyone. It just gives you less flare-ups while you're playing the game, and it sort of detracts from the actual gunplay anyway. It makes it harder to sight people as well if you've got too much particle lighting. So I leave this as low. With the next three, DirectX, ray tracing, ambient occlusion, and screen space reflection, I disable all of these settings. Okay, moving on to the post-processing effects. For the anti-aliasing, I use this as SMAA 1 times, and basically it just means that your computer will run smoother, the graphics will look a bit smoother. If you need to, if you've got a really top-end card, you can actually increase this if you like. But for me, the gameplay itself is fine at SMAA 1X, and it also means I'm not super heavy on the graphic card being enabled. Depth of field, I use this as disabled. Again, if you enable it, it makes it more realistic, but it doesn't necessarily improve your gameplay. In fact, it can kind of detract if it's using up too much memory. And if you get a loss in frame rate, it's sort of the payoff. So I leave this as disabled. Filmic strength at 1. World motion blur, at disabled. Weapon motion blur is disabled. And film grain, I'll leave this alone and just leave that as 0. So look, I hope these settings have been helpful for you for your Warzone gaming experience. This has given me the best performance so that I get the best frames per second. As you can see here, I've enabled these options to look at my frames per second, latency, and packet loss while I'm playing. And I've noticed that as I change and alter these settings, the improvements and what's given me the best results so far. So I hope these have helped. Listen, if you like this, like and subscribe to the channel. I share a lot of Apex videos mainly, but you'll start to see more Warzone videos coming very soon. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.